questions in meetings.
You know, maybe we can get them to be creative. I was gonna go over and talk to them,
That's kind of, that's what I'm trying to get
but
at.
here's what I'm thinking, like, you know, a lot of times officers have to write them right after an incident. Maybe instead of in a part of town where it wouldn't make a difference, to drive over to that utility place where there's a pullout there and do them there. Have a little more presence there. If he doesn't have time to do it, maybe get creative to find time to do it. So, you know what I mean? Just an idea. It's something we can talk to him about. I'd like to see more presence there too, but I don't know how to do that.
All right, let's go ahead and call this Economic Development Authority meeting to order. If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doing a roll call, we have all members present. Do we have any agenda modifications?
We do have one agenda modification, a request to add meeting frequency it'll be G2, business items.
Motion to approve with the addition.
Second.
I have a motion to approve with the addition from Commissioner Merrill, and Commissioner Holmgren is the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. Moving on to E1, the approval of the meeting minutes from the Economic Development Authority meeting held on June 4th, 2024.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Lundin and a second from Commissioner Hennickamp. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. Moving on to our first business item, G1, resolution to consider awarding the 2025 crop lease.
Good evening, EDA board members. The city of Isani has determined that certain property currently owned by the city and the EDA will not be needed in the near future and for the intended public use. And so the city council and EDA advertised and obtained one quote from the parties interested in farming the above stated, or the property located on the west side of town, shown in Exhibit A, which is the map of Parcel A. We received one quote for the crop year for 2025, so this is for the next year, for $6,060 from Jacob Kiefenheim of Kiefenheim Farms, who currently has a lease for 2024. The lease is pretty much in line with this year's lease, was a little bit higher, but it's still higher than most other years where we've done this crop lease, so it's still a good price. So staff is requesting action on this item.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion to approve from Commissioner Lundin and a second from Commissioner Hennickamp. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. And then G2 was meeting frequency.
So G2, I had brought this up. I know we briefly talked about it in the past, but I mean, we just did that in about 2 minutes flat. And I don't think that there's any reason that we had to have an EDA meeting, because now it still has to go to council. I would like to give staff more discretion on what comes to EDA versus what just goes straight to council. We could have done the same thing in council and it wouldn't have made any difference, and it just cost us at least $500 to do it.
EDA owns this land, though.
Yes, so
That's why.
the EDA and council do not have the same ownership. It's because
But the
there's
city
multiple
still owns it
parcels.
all.
Technically, the EDA is a separate entity in the ownership, so they still have to approve the lease of this land.
Well, I guess in the future, we have these meetings and there's usually not much substance, and I just
Well,
hate to
this
see-
is probably the most canceled meeting, I would say.
Yeah.
And
It-
we do cancel it on
It
a,
does
not a
depend
regular
on,
basis, but I mean, it's,
it depends on the year. So in some years, we have meetings regularly if we have people purchasing land that we own or other subsidies coming through, or development agreements that require the EDA action. In other years, we have less. So it just kind of depends. The nice thing about having the frequency and canceling is that we always have a meeting available for those times. Otherwise, we would be calling special meetings oftentimes so that they wouldn't have to wait multiple months, so.
I guess, yeah, I'm fine with, I understand we have to have it every month on the calendar, but I think this one could have just been canceled and had it joined in on the city council stuff. Unless there's some law, because I know most cities don't even have an EDA, so I don't know why we would have to.
Because we do have an EDA, the EDA does have to weigh in because it is their land that they own. So that is why we wouldn't be able to allow the council to say that the EDA lease, because the authority was given to the EDA through state statute.
I think what maybe also you're asking is about having an EDA. We are not required to have an EDA, but because we do have one established, they have their own authority. They can pass their own resolutions. If the council wanted to take over ownership of things that were under the EDA, there'd have to be a series of events that occurred and to basically abolish the Economic Development Authority.
Yeah, that's not what I'm asking. I just think it's kind of silly to pay, I mean, we get paid $300 to be here. City staff is gonna end up $700-800 for us to make this one decision, which we've already talked about this in the past. I just don't understand. There has to be a way that we can have council make these sort of decisions, I would think, but then I guess I would be for getting rid of the EDA, because I don't think it really adds any value to our city as far as what it costs us to have these meetings, in my opinion.
Well, being previously on the ED, or not on the EDA, but being on city council, I was automatically on the EDA.
Right.
I felt at one time, and I guess Steve, you're the only one that would be here that would know this. I think the EDA was at one time more active. And so maybe the thing to do with EDA is see if we can get it more active by turning this into a planning session for the EDA. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long planning session, maybe 15
Sure.
minutes, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, you know? And I see Jeff Johnson sitting in the crowd. I know him and some people went out and visited businesses. I don't know if, Jimmy, you've done that. I haven't kept track of what you're doing in the community, but, you know, they would go and visit businesses, and we'd hear reports on that, and
That would be fine.
I just think
Yeah.
there's just more we can do here as an EDA.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we're not getting our money's worth or our residents' money worth by having these meetings that have one little thing that really is just a technicality. So I would like to either see us get rid of it or do more to get the money's worth for our residents. That's where I'm going with it. It's just, is it cost effective? Probably not, unless we do more or get rid of it.
Should we have a goal-setting type meeting then for the EDA?
Well, if I could, I think it's important that, and this has nothing to do with my seat specifically, just as a city looking out for the best interest of the city. I make $25, I think, a meeting, so I don't see the huge expense like you do for the 10-minute meeting or the 15-minute meeting that normally happens. But I think with a city that's so poised for growth and literally for economic development, I think that to have an authority to do that, not saying this authority is currently playing much of a role in that, I think is incredibly beneficial for the city to do. So if that means that this becomes a more active entity, I think that's a great thing. But the idea of getting rid of it, I don't think is advantageous long-term for the city of Isani. I think there's a lot of good that this authority could do. And maybe it's not doing right now. But
Exactly.
I think there's a lot that it could be doing, so.
That's fair.
I think what may be helpful also is to just share, and Ms. Hillesheim can bring it at the next meeting, or we can share it at a committee of the whole meeting, just to get out there what specific authority that the EDA does have that council can't do. So they have their own levy, they have their own authority for housing decisions, business decisions, loans even that they can do. Now, we haven't seen a lot of that come through, but they do have things that they can do. It was just kind of odd to say because it is so much of the council on the
Right.
EDA, but they have specific authority and powers that the council cannot do.
I mean, would it
But
be?
and to your point, the EDA never used to meet on council nights. It was an off night. That's a different story. We're here. Now, we're gonna go into a budget work session that's gonna take a heck of a longer than this did, which
Oh,
is gonna
right.
cost the residents a heck of a lot more than what this just did. So, but when it was on a separate night, that was another issue. And with this being where it's at now, it really isn't costing them that much more to have this meeting. And the EDA had, in years past, was very busy with a lot of things. And a lot of EDA meetings went for 3-4 hours long.
Okay. I guess I've been on the EDA longer than council, so I've never really seen much on
I
the
have,
EDA.
trust
Yeah,
me.
that's fair.
Just kind of
Luke,
depends.
I can
and
agree
it
with
goes
you.
in
In the
s-
3.5 years I've been paying attention, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 agenda items. I haven't seen a lengthy EDA meeting either, so.
And
I
it
see
really,
what
it
you're
really
saying.
does depend on what's going on, like now as we see interest rates rising, this is when our potential use of a loan comes in a lot more frequently. And I mean, the last number of years, we've seen interest rates really low. Our loan program doesn't help people who are already getting low rates. So, our goal is to not compete with banks, but we're trying to help make a project pull forward. So,
Could
to
we-
fill a gap, so.
Could we maybe just add another like G2 every time about discussion, and we just all talk to sort of get maybe some ideas rolling or something of actual value? Because us talking up here, we bring up things that other people didn't think about, and I think that's valuable, but right now it's just not valuable, period.
Well, I don't know if EDA, as a commissioner on EDA, if I have any authority to do this at all, but is this something that could be discussed at the next COW meeting? Just what role can EDA play? I mean, obviously, the EDA board isn't, we're not present there or of any voice, but just as a discussion among city staff and council, what do they want EDA to look for? Is that a good launching point for discussion, is the next committee of a whole meeting?
That's what I was gonna say too, was, why don't we, if you, give us a list of, what potentially can the EDA do and what, I mean, I think that would be valuable, so.
Excuse me, and what else they've done in the past too, just to
Sure.
bring things back to the.
And I mean, some of that is, I'm personally, I'm all about more free market, stuff. So, I
Right.
mean, I don't really want to subsidize businesses and I don't really want to, so I mean, that's, that may be, if you want to look for somewhere to blame, that could be on me maybe a little bit, but that's just the principle that I hold to. So I don't want that, you know what I mean?
Well, here's
So,
an example of something that I had on the last cow agenda. We didn't get to that as well, but it was about the creamery, and there's somebody that wants to buy it, but they can't make the connection with the property owner, and that's something that I feel like we should do, but that's not something that's on here. So, I mean, I think we just have to make it worth our taxpayers' money for us to be here. Otherwise,
yeah, I
it's
agree
not.
with
But
that.
That's the
but
whole
that-
point.
But also, that's where an EDA would step in, is trying to make that connection between
Right.
that owner that wants to purchase that and the owner.
But I never thought about that until tonight. So this discussion is good for all of us. I think we should just have a discussion every single one, no matter what.
I think it would
I
be
like
great
the
to have a
idea.
goal planning meeting for the EDA specifically. I also think we need to keep just in mind that the reason why economic development hasn't also been is staff time is really limited. And so we need to just keep that in consideration because my time has really been spent focusing on planning and zoning a lot more than
Yeah, so
I've had time for economic development.
if
So
we were to
can
do
have some
more here
goals-
as us, which
Yep.
is what we're paid to do, that would take some of that off of you. So that's kind of my point. We have these meetings and there's nothing that we do, and you're overworked, so why don't we, work together to make it better?
But as an elected and appointed board, what can we do to take the workload off of Stephanie, who's
Outreach is probably a big one.
I mean, maybe if there's benefit to us doing the outreach there. Or guiding that outreach, but yeah.
One thing I would say to Commissioner Gordon is, not everything the EDA does has to be.
No, I understand that too, you're right, but a lot of it can fall into that territory, and so,
Well,
but,
if you're against that, you can just push the other way.
well, right, yeah, yeah.
I respect.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we can't explore options on what we can do as an EDA.
But I think one of the most valuable things we did was go out and visit community businesses. I mean, you invite them to a mayor's meeting, mayor's luncheon, which I think is great. But also, I think, we can go beyond that and go see what they do. I remember going to Snow Bear, and I thought was one of the best things I ever did was go visit Snow Bear. And I didn't visit a lot of business, I don't know if I can think of any others, but,
And that is something I am doing, sorry. That is something I am doing throughout the year, is visiting businesses. And recently, it's been specifically with the school district as they've been making more connections with businesses too. So it's kind of been twofold in the county. So we have been going together, which has been really great. So that is something that I am doing as often as I can, but it's the more business retention that we can do, it is appreciated, and it's nice to visit them more regularly.
Do you get people asking for, like a new business wants to come in, or at least is looking at coming in? Do they say, I'd like to talk to other businesses, you know? Because I'm wondering if we could go visit them too, like, hey, this is what I sent you offers, we'd love to have you here. Sometimes that friendly outreach, you know, that, you know.
It would be great to have a mentorship business program, to connect people with other businesses who have succeeded within ISAND. I think that would be a great idea. But I do get a lot of connections from new potential businesses, who are looking to start in ISAND.
Have we ever had business owners in Isani come into the EDA meetings with maybe recommendations or things that they see need to be changed? I've gotten messages from businesses lately about things that they think could be done better by the city. Have we ever reached out and said, hey, you guys can come in, this is an EDA meeting, maybe we could have a discussion period for business owners here to know what needs to be changed or help to promote the businesses we have and hopefully future businesses see that?
Not that I'm aware of here, so that's an idea, as long as it's something, I guess, that the EDA can control,
Right.
within their powers, I guess, but, yeah. Even within the knowledge of something that the, council could control would be helpful to
Mm-hmm.
then have the EDA persuade the council or make a recommendation to council on changes that would be beneficial to businesses.
Okay.
I got a topic to talk about,
Yeah?
about that property that we tried to sell and then it fell through.
Which one?
The one where was it Special Tools?
Mm.
That we were gonna sell and then put the money into savings or whatever. Where are we on reselling that?
I'm still waiting for us to officially get the land back, so I'll keep you updated on that, on both properties. So once I know that, I'll add it to an update.
Okay.
I'd like to say a couple things. One of them, I think if you are interested in doing something Ms. Hellesheim said and maybe doing some more goal setting for EDA, I think that the best place for that is at the EDA, so we have all members contributing of what areas of focus you would like to work on yourselves as an authority board, and also maybe for direction for staff. The other thing I'd like to mention, I think that there is a change of what happens when you have council become, full council, become members of other boards. I feel like there sometimes gets to be this redundancy where maybe you're feeling that there may not be as much value, but if there were only one or two council representatives on this EDA board, there'd be a lot of different more insight for maybe not residents, but business owners. You don't have to live here necessarily to be on the EDA, but you need to own a business here. And perhaps they are bringing in a different perspective that when it came across you as council, it seemed fresh and different, or you know what I mean? So sometimes there's benefits to having all of council on another board, but then there's maybe a drawback in that you don't have as many opinions coming out or insights from other areas.
And that was a question I had too for this. On the park board, there's only one council member on that, correct? Why are all five of us on the EDA? Because the EDA was hard to fill, so they just took, that's one question, like why are, we all hear the same things like you said, and
Well, I don't want to speak for council at the time, but I believe the EDA made the change in 2014 to go from 2 council representative members to all of council. Planning Commission, not in that same year, but they also did the same. There may have been something said of we couldn't fill it, but maybe it was just at that time the direction that council wanted to be a part of that as well.
Didn't that come with committee of the whole, that filling council members and all that?
No, that was before Committee of the Whole. Committee of the Whole is relatively newer.
Mr. Burgley, you and I were both on EDA back before it became all
Just,
one.
yeah.
well, I'm gonna go on a limb and say it wasn't a good reason that all 5 seats on the council were appointed those boards. So I think it gives too much power to the council members myself. Look at what got forced through from 2014 to 2018 in the city. And you had the majority vote here from council that was already swayed one direction, so, I think we should maybe consider going into just 2, or going back to how it was.
So if I could, maybe here's a suggestion, so, because I think a lot of people, obviously, you see EDA, I know I do on my calendar, I'm like, that'll be over like that, right?
Right.
So maybe to allow people to prepare, taking into consideration that there's not always a lengthy agenda, is it possible to skip September, right? Let's have a meeting in October, and let's have that as an agenda item, the discussion of EDA in know that we're in this one to, you know, for the long haul, right, to try to figure out some guidance. Does that make sense? Can we do that?
Unless something comes up pressing
Yeah.
next month, right?
But I mean, I definitely agree, the frequency probably is a little high on what they need to be right now, but that could change with scope. So taking into consideration what Commissioner Merrill's saying, just from a cost-effective point,
And I
wipe
brought
away
this up.
September.
I brought this up like a year ago too, and sometimes they require us to meet. So usually like things like this, we have to do it. Of
course.
So it's not, yeah, so I don't
course.
wanna say it's not necessary,
No,
but at the
but
same time,
maybe,
it,
yeah, maybe there's ways to make it.
We can't, like I said, I mean, if we don't have anything, Stephanie actually is the one normally that'll say, hey, you know, Mayor Gordon, we don't have anything that's pressing on this, you know, let's go ahead and cancel that EDA meeting. So we do that when we don't have something. I mean, we don't just have these meetings for fun. I mean, it's, if we're not gonna do any business, there's no reason to meet. Not that, I mean, I enjoy seeing you guys, but.
well, this one today was kinda for fun. It was
Well,
3
it-
minutes.
I'm having a
No,
blast.
we have to do that.
We had to do that.
Oh, we
to-
had
It's-
to,
it's-
right.
It's EDA owned land, that's why we had to do it. so.
Right.
And if we do post a deadline that we have, that there's a deadline, I mean, staff, not to say that we couldn't change process procedure, but staff does bring it the following meeting after the closing date. You know, if we have an RFP on council, if we have a contract expiring, or this for the crop lease, if it was just information, Stephanie would have waited. But if it's to actually have something that had a deadline attached to it, we don't want to have the public perception be that we just sat on something and didn't move it forward.
Sure.
Even though that wouldn't have been why we would have done it, we would have done it because maybe we didn't think it was more urgent.
Right.
But we also make sure that the person who put the bid in knows that we are acting on it in a timely fashion, so.
So could I make a motion to just add a discussion item to every meeting following this one, to the EDA, so we can talk about anything like this?
I think
I
that,
do-
I say it should be one meeting at a time, just
yeah,
like council members can add to the agenda, EDA members, they can add to the agenda. So if you want a discussion, just have it added to the next agenda.
That's a good idea.
Are you requesting to have a standing council or economic EDA member discussion items? Like
Yes.
something like that, standing?
Yes.
Yes, we can create that.
We can,
Just wanna have a time for discussion.
And I would recommend that to anybody on this board for the EDA. If you want to add something, you want something to talk about, get it on there.
well, I think to have staff, hopefully, if it's possible, to come to us with what the scope of EDA can be, has been, should be, perhaps using other cities around as an example of what they're using it for, so that we can determine what the scope of our EDA is gonna be. And then from there, we can determine what each member can do, is capable of doing, should be doing, probably should not be doing on some items.
We'll make sure that that gets in the packet too, for whatever the next
Yeah.
meeting is, so then
Yeah.
you have time before the meeting to look over it and maybe have some thoughts, recommendations on it.
Can you also look to see how many city councils and EDAs have their full city council on their EDA? Because I don't think that's typical.
I don't know of any others.
That's exact, we
So-
gotta get rid of that.
I always
ASAP.
thought that was strange. So
It
maybe-
is strange, and
you wanna
now
bring
you
that-
know why.
Yeah,
Well-
well, yeah, it makes
So
sense,
now, I think
14 to
we've,
18, yeah.
We've got some direction then on what we want future EDA meetings to look like. Let's add the discussion on whether the full council needs to be on EDA to our next committee of the whole meeting then. 'Cause that would be a discussion that we should have there for that, so.
What were the other meetings that council wasn't always on? Steve Lindy?
Planning, I don't
Planning
think.
commission.
Planning.
What's
I mean, I would like to do the same thing for planning.
Planning
It-
commission, what meetings were council not always on?
There were, every council member was involved in different things.
Right, but
So
we
what,
didn't have a full council.
but you had your liquor store committee, you had your police committee, you had public works committee, you had all these separate committees. And that's what COW was designed for, is so that they were brought in all at one time and they weren't just, COW was designed for committee of a whole, which means all the committees were put in one whole. So liquor store would come in this month, and maybe liquor store and public works. And then the next month, it would be police and whatever, public work, whatever. So it was revolving, so all those committees were discussed all at once, so everybody got the same information all at once. That's what COW was designed for. It wasn't designed for anything other than that.
And I think that change was a good change, so.
I agree.
Because that way, the department heads could come in and have that discussion with us, and everybody was informed about it, rather than one council member, like you were on the police committee, you would have to come in and try to remember or take your notes, and maybe something you missed or you misunderstood. Now Travis comes in and he talks to all of us, and we all get all the information all at once at the same time. And that's why COW was designed for what it was. That's what it stands for, Committee of a Whole. So that all these committees would come in, and then plus the staff wasn't, they would just be designated that time frame to come in here rather than any other time.
I think that one is the only one that we have that all 5 of us from council are on that we need to be on. I think I think that one's the meat of what we do is COW. That's where all the discussion happens. And I think all 5 of us should be on that, but planning and EDA, I don't think all 5 council members should be on it, so that's, we're definitely need to discuss that.
Well, it's an opportunity for
Other people to
perspective,
get
right?
involved.
If we're gonna do an EDA, and obviously we'll talk about this at length, we need to have a North 65 chamber member probably maybe appointed to the EDA to, because they're gonna have better insight on it than any, you know what I mean?
And then
But-
in the last 3 or 4 years, every time a seat's been open on these boards, it seemed like someone wants it. So I don't think we'd have any problem filling a couple more seats.
Well, this
myself.
council race shows there's people interested in being involved, so.
Yep.
I'd be open to adding another seat or 2 seats.
I think we just get rid of 2 or 3 council members and then, because otherwise the council is the majority, so really what council wants happens, and I don't think that's right. So,
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on here, and we will take another look at that at the next meeting and at our committee of the whole, so. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Hold on,
Oh, hold on.
Stephanie wasn't done speaking.
No, I don't, well, we
Yes,
did
she
have the
was.
mayor's luncheon since the last one, and so we had a great turnout on that.
We went really
I'll
well.
just have a couple updates.
Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
So we did have a great turnout for the mayor's luncheon, again this year, which is great to see all of our business has come out and more longevity and more businesses, I feel like, are accepting awards every year, which is really great. I don't have an update yet for those 2 parcels, so hopefully we'll have one soon. And then we do have an update that we're moving forward with the purchase of that parcel on the corner of Highway 65 and 5, finally clearing up the title. So we should see some final closing date coming soon for that. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Burgley and a second from Commissioner Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.